how much power does the media have to push a narrative for war for 20 years? I mean, do they have that much leverage to, I mean, they're also almost showing future presidents, hey, if you pull out of anywhere else, Biden or anybody, you're going to get blitzed in this way. I mean, how much power do they have?
It's a great point. And I don't think they even realize that. I think obviously TV has a lot of power because they're showing images from there. And some of them are really sad images, people trying to evacuate. And then those are going viral. And so in that social media climate, it has a lot of impact. But I was thinking, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about, this isn't exactly like Vietnam, but the thing that I see as similar is, Lyndon Johnson comes in 1963, and he's dealing with the Vietnam War. My understanding of his position really changed years ago when I listened to like a phone conversation he had, and I cannot remember who he was talking to, but this was maybe it's 1965, maybe even a little bit earlier. So this is pretty early, before the real expansion, the escalation of Vietnam had really, really, really taken off. And he's basically saying things like, I just don't see how we're going to win this thing. I don't see any good ending to it. He's already predicting, 10 years in advance, nearly 10 years in advance, that this is going to basically be a stalemate, that there's no path to victory for the United States, that and he's basically saying, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm just totally stuck here. I don't know what to do. And the way I took it was, probably the main reason he didn't know what to do was because I think there's either in that conversation or another conversation, there's a point where he said something like, I'm not going to go down as the first president, to lose a war, or I'm not going to be the first. I don't want to go down as a president who lost, to the communists or whatever. So you have the sense, and we think back on Vietnam, it was so unpopular, and we think of protesters. But in 1964, 65, the war was supported by most people. And Lyndon Johnson's, the political calculus for him was not like, oh, I need to get out because there are all these anti-war protesters. They weren't really around very much at that point. His thinking is, if I pull out right now, I'm going to be seen as this weak figure, and I'm going to get attacked. I'm going to be seen as like this guy couldn't stand up to the communist bloc, So that was the perception he had. So I think a lot of what he was doing was he was being driven by this sense that he didn't want to look weak. So it wasn't that he had conned himself into thinking we can win this thing. That's what made it even more sad to me, that he knew early on this is unwinnable. But he continued on because the alternative, which is to pull out, he couldn't stand how it was going to make him look and how he was going to be. This is my belief, that he couldn't stand how this was the way people were going to respond to it. And then Nixon comes in 69, and he's just like thinking, he could have probably started withdrawing troops immediately, but he waited about 4 years to negotiate what was essentially a defeat. I mean, it was terms of defeat. You could have negotiated that in 1969 instead of 1973, but he didn't want to be with Biden is right now. He didn't want to be seen as the guy before his re-election as the guy who's presiding over this disaster with people trying to escape Saigon and U.S. looking pathetic.